Hey folks, welcome to Wally DM, and today we're going to do a Dungeon Master Roundtable, and we're going to talk about shopping and how we handle it in our game. If players want to roleplay shopping, what would you do to make it more interesting? But I'm not going to tackle this subject alone. With me, I have a few of my YouTube friends. We have Jordan from Flute's Loot, Jake from J&J Tabletop, Dennis, the OKSDM, Fred from How to D&D, and Alex the Bear Bard. So let's get this started. Jordan, what do you have for us? What do you think of shopping in your game?
With shopping, because we're just talking about how to make it more fun and interesting, right? One of my tips is to focus on hyper specialization. If you're just doing a shop that's just a Walmart, then it kind of loses its specialty. I like to have multiple shops with very quirky shopkeepers, or very normal shopkeepers with very quirky inventory, one of the two. And so I really like them to specialize. Like, I've had fun in Curse of Strahd, for example, where I used I forget what her name, like Annie Green Teeth or something, and I only used her as a shopkeep, not as all the special things people do. But I also included her having something of an aphrodisiac, and the players were like, "Oh, maybe we can help someone's marriage with that." And so they gave it to the burgomaster to try to help him with their sham of a marriage. And so just quirky things like that people don't expect in a fantasy setting, like weird potions, can be fun. So I recommend thinking up some quirky items to throw in if people are shopping, especially if you don't want to do full-on magic shops. I do not like doing that. At least think of some quirky things, you could also look at the Xanathar's Guide items that are very mundane magic items, like the Cloak of Billowing, stuff like that, where it's pretty harmless and it's not going to ruin either your trying to balance items for your characters or the world building you try to do by having all these crazy magic items that are available. Yeah, and that's about it. Really, I highly recommend having quirky shopkeepers, though. People who watch Critical Role know some of the most memorable NPCs have been Matt just doing really quirky shopkeepers. So it's a big opportunity. Don't sleep on it and have fun.
Quick, before we move on, give me one quirky potion that you would have in that shop.
An aphrodisiac. There you go.
All right, sounds good. How about you, Jake? What do you have for us?
Yeah, I kind of think that shopping really is all about the shopkeeper for the most part, because I think the items in general, obviously, if you have an aphrodisiac, like Flutes is suggesting there, you're going to have some fun, and you can also have some very interesting moral dilemmas, actually, with an aphrodisiac potion. But I like to try and somehow tie the shopping experience into the vibe of the city, the town, the location, the story, anything that's going to help make it a little more immersive. Because personally, on my own level, when I'm a player, I kind of tolerate shopping episodes, if you will, more than I really love to dive in. So if I can kind of include other elements of what's going on, maybe make it more personal, if the players can get attached to the shopkeeper in some way, maybe the taxes are really high on the shopkeeper, or maybe there's a war going on and the just orders are out there going crazy on them, and they have to find a way to just make that more personal. Then I think it just makes everything a lot better for everybody involved. It makes everybody care about the shopkeeper. Maybe they even find some side quest because this relationship they may or may not develop. But to me, it's all about the shopkeeper, and that's where I like to focus my attention on as much as I can, because sometimes these moments can come out of left field, but maybe that's a question for a little later.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. If you're going to, if you're not a fan of the shopping experiences in D&D, but do you have to do it, you might as well make it interesting, get some memorable moments, make it personal. Love that answer. How about you, Dennis? What do you have for us? Shopping in D&D.
So when my players go shopping, it's always for one of two reasons. First, they have something, or they need something desperately, or they have too much money and they need to go buy stuff. If they are looking for something like a mirror or a rope or something along those lines, we'll just do it in summary. We won't actually have them walk into the shop. I won't describe the shopkeeper. I'll say, okay, you go wander, roll an investigation check. If it's low, it takes longer to find what you need. It's when they just got a big pile of loot that I put effort into building of the actual shop. The interesting proprietors, the cool homebrewed magic items that I just sort of threw together to see if they're broken. Usually I will be able to plan this ahead of time, but if my players decide to go shopping and I don't have anything prepared and they kind of threw me off guard, I usually just do my best to ad lib a cool shopkeeper and some weird magic items, but all the prices are just exorbitantly high, so they never end up buying anything.
I have a feeling maybe the rogue might want to go back in and try to pick up a few of those after that. If they see it, they're not able to afford, go back in. That
has happened a couple times.
How about you, Fred? What do you have for us?
Okay. How do I deal with shopping in my game? Well, I've changed the way I do things. So when the players want to go and buy stuff, then I let them go and buy stuff. And that's generally what I do. I mean, if you're looking for like a really hot take or something really useful, I don't know that there's that much. The difference is that, like, when we're dealing with like adventuring gear stuff in the player's handbook, they usually just say, "Oh, can I buy stuff from the adventuring gear list?" And I'll just say, "Yeah, just go. If you do that, we're going to keep going. Just take off whatever you need." We just get most of my group now are at this point. We've done shopping to death, and so we just whiz on past. The only time we spend significant time on shopping is when they're going for a decent item, like we're going to buy a castle, or we want to buy a boat to sail on the on the ocean, or we want to buy this guy's flying ship, and if he won't sell it to us, we're going to kick his ass or just steal it from outside underneath him and leave him a little note. "Thanks for the boat. Here's like 20,000 gold pieces," or something like that. That's generally how my group operates when it comes to shopping. I generally don't do a lot of role playing. I did in the past. I would do a lot of role playing around the shopkeeper. That's very rare now. I don't do a lot of that now. I constantly get barraged by my players about, "Let's go shopping for magic items." So I did actually have to build like a shop, and I place it in various locations. And it usually doesn't sell permanent magic items if they want to go shopping for that sort of thing. It's usually consumables. And I make the NPC the biggest prizest poo bum under the sun. Like, they are just a complete arsehole to deal with. And I just make my players' life as miserable as I possibly can when they have to negotiate with them. Like, I literally, the last time I did this, they found like a mage who would sell them stuff. And the first time it went all good, but they kept coming back. And they would keep going back, and there'd be a sign on the door that would say something like, "I'm away on holiday, go away." Or "do not disturb." And of course they would knock on the door and they get the ire. So to even go in and buy anything from this particular individual, there would be an entry fee. And the entry fee started, I think I started at one gold piece, and I just kept cranking it up, so that every time they went back, it was more and more of a problem to actually buy something. So that's I know that sounds really sort of punishing, because it is, but if you have to deal with my players I've been playing with for a long time, and you've been asked every single session, "Where's the magic shops?" Or "Have we leveled up today?" Like, those are the two most common questions I get from my group. I am going to mess with their head as much as I possibly can. None of this is useful to anybody watching this.
It sounds like your players should have their characters go over to Dennis's shops, because it sounds like they have enough gold to shop and buy the items at his stores. So maybe we should, throw a flyer together or something like that. Next up, we have Alex, the Bear Bard. Mr. Bear Bard, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so I kind of, I guess similar to Loot, where I like to have shops specialize. I mean, so first off, you feel like you got to talk to your group, because, you talk to your group ahead of time, and if they're just like, "I hate shopping," cool. You walk up to the store, pick from the player's handbook what do you want to buy, But generally, I like to make it almost a puzzle to find what they're looking for, make it almost a side quest in itself. I'm looking for, I really want this a fancy bow. Cool. How are you going to get to it? You have to find a bower. Then you got to find a bower that's good enough to do what you're looking for. And so, I try to make it almost like a side quest in itself to find the shopkeep that they need, and I try not to be annoying about it. There's always the balance of like, "Bro, we spent 2 sessions looking for a damn bower. Can we just find someone?" So, and then just try to make it fun. Do something different with it. My group, they always try to barter and flirt to barter and get cheaper prices. So, but it's just about trying to make that memorable, make something about it memorable, the shop memorable, the keeper memorable, or just again the journey to get to the shop. If they have to work to get to the shop, they're going to appreciate it that much more. And a lot of times it's just going to be like kind of information and fact gathering. Going around talking to people, trying to find hey, I'm in Waterdeep. Let me tell me where this one place. Oh, I think I heard of a place over there. Maybe they get jumped on the way, something like that. So, otherwise, I'm so bad with economy in game. I'm not even gonna lie about it. It's something. It's my weak point. I'm really trying to work on it as far as like how much gold I give out versus how much I charge for things and stuff like that. So, that's my weak point. But I generally try to make everything available if someone's trying to get to it. Magic items are the one exception.
I love that answer. He also said bartering, and I think that's one of the fun things too. That as a player, if your character is going to go into a shop, I mean, I don't think that they've ever paid full price for it. Be like, hey, how about I give you this much for it? Absolutely love it. Great ideas there. For me, I'm kind of a combination of all of you, honestly. Like Fred, if the characters want like, hey, I need some rope, I need a lantern, I need some torches, some iron rations, whatever else, I'm just going to say, go through the player's handbook. I'm going to hand wave it, and whatever it costs, there you have it. No problem at all. But now I have been in games where I've also seen it split. Like some of the players like to have a shopping experience and some of them don't. But I think in general, that happens with everything in games. Some players like puzzles, some don't. Some like combat, some don't. Some like role-playing, some don't. So what I like to do is if we do end up going into this role playing of the shop or whatnot, well, the first thing is I grab my phone and I take a look at the NPC generator and I just generate me a shopkeeper real quick. And I absolutely love this because it always comes up with something really good. So I'm going to hit generate. And so now I immediately have a shopkeeper that's name is Kasuth, and they have an even temper. And one of their plot hooks is they need help exercising their childhood friend. So now they're in there shopping and they're going to be talking about, yeah, my friend's been possessed or whatever else. It's just this weird, as somebody said earlier, this weird, quirky shopkeeper. And now I'm going to possibly even be able to give them a quest or just be like, that dude is weird. Let's not go back there ever again or something like that. So I love to just generate an NPC, see what it says. But yeah, I absolutely love doing things like that. A few other things I like to do is I like to put trinkets or items in a shop, and I'll have characters be like, hey, by the way, as they're shopping, so the ones that aren't interested and they're just like, grumbling and whatnot, but like while they're up there bartering with the shopkeeper to get a scroll or whatnot, you notice this trinket over there. And I'll roll a trinket, and a lot of times I'll make him magical. Now, I brought a couple books for show and tell with me. The first one I have, this is my friend Stephen Williams. He writes Nerzigal's Dungeon Master Toolkit. And I like to take a trinket, and there is D100 charts in this book where you can have beneficial effects and detrimental effects. And there's levels, there's minor, there's major, there's greater. So you can juice those up really good if you want. And I'll give that item, let's just say it's a chess piece. And they find this chess piece, they take it, and I allow them to attune to it, and then they can have 2 effects on there. Or if it's at a point in a campaign that I want to give the characters, maybe it's a magic item that I want to personalize for them, maybe they find it in the trash bin in the shop. Again, maybe it calls out to them or something. Now, the other book I brought for show and tell is Remarkable Shops. This is a great book from Loresmith, and I really like it as well. If you're not into the NPC generators that you can find online, there is a lot of great ideas for shops, whether they're normal shops or really quirky shops or just really fun ideas, whether it's things that they're selling, the NPCs, but all kinds of great things. So if the characters in my game are going to be going to somewhere and I want to be prepared to run a shop on the fly, then that is another resource that I would probably use. Now, my final thing that I would like to mention is I also like to have possible threats or mysterious things going on. And one of my favorite ones is, while the 2 that are enjoying the shopping, the role-playing aspect, the other 2 might just be standing around and all of a sudden they see like a coat that just floats off of the rack. And of course, it's somebody that's invisible that is trying to steal things from the shop. And then I'll let them deal with the invisible creature while the other two are shopping and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of stuff in there. Again, as it was said, I think a few times already, you've got to have the group for it. If it's something they want to do, you can do it. It's not one of my favorite things, but if I'm going to run a shopping scene or role play then I definitely want to have some fun, and I want to put some cool things in there.
Yeah, I also got to thinking that the way that Wizards of the Coast writes adventure modules, they don't really support you doing shopping. It's usually they'll give you all this gold and stuff, and then the players are like, oh, when are we going to be able to spend this? And it just never comes up. And I think that's really disappointing. It's great if you have the mindfulness to say, my players are going to want to spend this. Maybe I should give them something to spend it on. But the books usually don't. I think the only thing that comes to mind that was economically based was Curse of Strahd saying everything they could get in the normal world is available here, but it's like, I don't know, like 5 times the price, like it's super inflated. And that's all I can think of. And so modules actually, I think, disincentivize DMs to really think about shopping, and it makes players devalue gold. It's one reason I wrote an article about like how to spend gold, to get players to talk to their DMs and like start thinking of how they want to spend it. That's one take I have on it. I also think a lot of players are very interested in crafting, and they don't get a lot of crafting rules. So really, like, shopping and crafting don't get a lot of support in 5e, or the rules that we do get aren't very practical to how the game is played and the time frames, like, in-game world that players have to work with. And so you really got to look to, like, third-party publishers or homebrew your own stuff to really make it work. I also think people should have fun with this. At session 0, like, talk to your players and say, like, how much do you want magic shops to be a thing? Because, like, I'd probably say something like, this is a low magic thing. You're probably not going to be able to just purchase magic items at every single shop, but there might be very special shops where you can. And I'm currently thinking of a world where there's kind of like this syndicate that hoards magic items, and they're like, we're the only ones who handle, like, the buying and selling of magic items. They might also be supported by the government, because the government doesn't want those to fall into the wrong hands, and maybe there's some power struggles between the two organizations. But I really think that there's a lot of opportunity for DMs who want to latch onto something and build around it. Because I think the guidance is often like, let's see what your players want to do and do that. But also, like, DMs sometimes want to build a world around a concept too. So I would say do a combination of those two things. Talk to your players and think of how much you're interested in building out that kind of concept.
I was just thinking of my group, and if they had seen a cloak start floating off and it's potentially somebody who's invisible trying to nick shit, I think my players would probably just let it happen and watch to see if it's whoever's doing it is successful, and if they are, then they'd have a go at doing it themselves. Leave the shop, become invisible, and then just, like, I wouldn't say ram raid the shop, but at least, like, see if they can have their own stuff nicked off as well. I can see more than a few of my players considering that as a possibility. So yeah, I would say that if you have magic shops or shops of some kind, you've got to have some sort of security. If you're going to sell magic items, you better have decent security. You can't just have an out of shape old dwarf or human or something like that, or whatever the heck. Somebody's got to be able to throw down. Okay, if they can't throw down and mess up the players, your shop no longer exists. It's going out of business very, very quickly. Okay, so you've got to do something about that. For those of you who are, like, wondering, why am I, and there's a couple of us who've already mentioned this, like, why do we not have magic shops that sell permanent magic items quite often? I've done the opposite in 5e, because I came from version 4, I've played 4e, I've played 3.5, I've played Pathfinder. Magic shops were a thing, okay? None of my players understood what was going on when suddenly I say, 5e, magic items are rare. You hardly ever see these things. And like, what? All I wanted was magic shops. So I ran a campaign, and there were magic shops. They could get plans for making magic items. And it just went completely nuts. So I've done the exact opposite, where you could get magic items easy peasies. There was nothing that could stop them. In the end, I had to actually destroy the world with demons so that they couldn't actually continue anymore. And I could finally take this freight train that had gone out of control that I realized needed to just die and be over with. I just destroyed the entire world so that I didn't have to continue running that campaign. They were confused as to why they could not save the world from the demons, but it's because of the magic items. There's just too many permanent magic items. So that's me.
I love your players, Fred. They're just they provide so many good stories. Anyone else on shopping? Yep, Dennis.
Two things. First, because it might be helpful to those of us who live in America, I once figured out that the exchange rate between gold in D&D and US dollars is about $40 to one gold piece. And that has helped me figure out prices so I don't have to look them up. Like, how much would this cost in real life? Okay, multiply that or divide that by 40-ish and then put that as the price tag. The other thing is that, yes, shops in my world, all the magic shops have so many guards and wards, and all of the defenses are magical. So much so that it didn't really come up until the players found a stronghold of their own. But in my world, there is a business that makes their living by making safe these buildings and securing them by putting ward after ward after ward and casting arcane lock, because those spells cost money. So you might as well just have someone else do it. And there's this just like traveling group of 3 abjuration wizards that just go around making safe people's homes and places of business.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff you guys are saying. One thing I like to do is to try and generate sympathy for the shopkeeper as much as I can. So like if you have maybe a table full of players like it sounds like Fred has, perhaps, well, maybe it wouldn't work on Fred's players, but perhaps they might feel bad about taking advantage of this shopkeeper. Or there's some memes I've seen where you'll see like heroes pay full price for items, because that's what heroes do, like they try to be fair to the shopkeeper. So any way I can generate sympathy there is good. But another thing I like to think about is if, especially in like some campaigns, like say like the starter set, you have Lost Mines and Dragon of Icespire Peak, where they're going to be stationary or located roughly in a single town, is if you can have items that are just out of their ability to spend at first. So like I had a player in my campaign, he was a fighter, so he wanted plate mail or plate armor, and it was just, it's like 800, I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head, but it's something like that. And it took him 3 or 4 levels before they saved up enough money to do that. But when he got the plate armor, it was a moment for him. It was like, this is great. And that's just it's mundane, it wasn't magical, but it really just incentivized such a fun moment for the players there. I think it's nice to be able to present choices that are significant with how they spend their money. So like Jordan, like you were saying, if you are a little more deliberate with that process, put more stuff that they could possibly spend on the table if they're not going to steal it, maybe. Well, even then, there could be consequences to stealing it. There's lots of ways that you could structure that, but I like to be able to make them feel like they've earned it. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just introducing something that they want to be like, well, this will help your armor class. And we're not looking at that and then setting that goal. And then once they do get that gold come back and then they take it back. But of course, then somebody will be like me, like, oh, yeah, by the way, the price just went up 200 gold pieces.
Yeah. One thing that when Jordan was talking, it reminded me, Dragon Heist, Waterdeep actually does a decent job giving you a money sink with the hotel and bar. I think that's a good example of having something to do, and it kind of like puts me under the point of like I like to have things that aren't consequential on there. So like I like that because it's a little different because like you could argue the more money they put into it, the more money they can get out of it with the bar, and then you can add a hotel and stuff to it. But I had a session where we literally spent half the session. They got their first paycheck from their first job, my group, and so they wanted to get suits made. and one of our guys was a turtle, and so they had to go find someone that would tailor a suit for a turtle. And so, there was like literally half the session was doing that. And then they spent another time that the guy was so proud of the suit he made for the turtle, he wanted to have him painted. So they had to come back a couple days later when he hired an artist to paint his portrait in the suit. And then there's the whole thing too, because they went on a mission in between there, and he didn't want to have his suit torn. So like he was trying to find a safe spot for the suit in between him. But, so it's like I like to introduce items and stuff that aren't game related, but something that gets them interested and makes them care about the world, just pure role play and having fun like that. But I think having a money sink, something like a bar, something like that, is a good way of using it too, and having them use their gold.
Yeah, 100% agree. I've just finished Dragon Heist for the second time, and then we're branching off from there, and I've already made them sink gold into the repairs because the fireball scene might have scorched half the building, so they had to get all of that repaired. And now one of the characters is actually looking for property, the other one's looking for magical scrolls, now that they have a little bit of coin to deal with. So if players don't come up with ideas on their own to sink their money into, to find things to spend their gold on, I think it's also fun for the DMB to just give some suggestions. Be like, hey, maybe some property, maybe that castle that you bought at Home Depot or whatnot.
One other thing, and Dungeon Masters, and I'm really glad that Dennis brought up his little fix. I don't live in America, so I have it won't help me in the slightest. But probably one of the things that you've discovered if you're a Dungeon Master when you're dealing with shops and trying to price things out is you have to do a lot of work, because the basic stuff is in the player's handbook, right? You've got the section on adventuring gear, your armor, basic armor, weapons, but there's no, and there's a few sort of services and other things, hiring people and stuff like that. There's a little bit of stuff there, but in the past we used to get like a supplement that would actually give us a lot more. And of course, when you pick this up and you're like, okay, I'm not going to use permanent magic items, but I want to use consumable magic items. I want them to be able to buy them. How much does that cost? That thing doesn't help you. Like there's really nothing even remotely useful in here. Okay, I'm not impressed. I keep getting this question from people with regard to like, how do I price out magic items in 5e when I decide I want to have magic items available to purchase? They might not be selling everything, but like, how do I figure that out? And it's actually not very easy to do. And I sympathize with you as you try to figure out what you should be charging for these things, because what you wind up doing is trying to figure out the crafting rules in 5e, trying to take that number and then sort of backward engineer from there the crafting of something, and then what would be the retail price for that if you were to sell it as a retail item, and you just wind up going, and so you wind up just trying to figure out something. I don't know about you guys, but I've always found that to be a giant headache. It chews up a whole lot of my time when I have to do that sort of thing. And Wizard of the Coast, it would have taken all of, even if people choose not to have magic shops and sell that stuff, it would have taken all of how much time for you to just put a little entry beside it saying recommended sale price for this magic item. I mean, recommended price in the Forgotten Realms for this magic item. Okay, that's all it needed to do. A lot of the third-party supplements do this already with magic items. There's a gold piece value, so that's your standard price. And so, yeah. So the rest of you who haven't got third-party magic items and you're using the 5e Wizard of the Coast stuff, you have to suffer.
I agree. They should. It wouldn't take very much to put a gold piece value in the magic items charts. So the way that I handle that is, yeah, sure, they have a sword +1 for sale. Like, oh, okay, well, how much is it going to cost? How much you got? That's how I solve it.
See, well, yeah, that's what you do. You just look at how much gold they have, and then every time they're like, "But we just bought a potion for this much." Like inflation. That's it. Inflation's the answer for all the changing prices.
That's definitely one way you can handle that. It's funny that you mentioned that, Fred, because I've just pulled up the chart in there, and it says a rare item. It's like, anywhere from 501 gold pieces to 5,000. When that happens, I just kind of just do an off-the-cuff judgment, like, would this be on the lower power side of the rare category or the higher? And I just kind of make it up as I go, and inevitably they try to haggle me down like to 10% of the cost, and because that's what players do. But it really wouldn't have taken that much to just, this is more or less 800 gold, or whatever the case may be. I would have been very good. Those are good points, fellas.
So those are some of our thoughts on shopping in Dungeons & Dragons. I also posted a poll on this. What are your experiences with your characters shopping in your D&D game? 46% of you said, meh, we occasionally enjoy shopping scenes in games, but not always. 34% said fun. We can obtain unique items, rumors, plot hooks, or meet NPCs. So with all that being said, I want to thank my YouTube friends for joining me on this conversation, and be sure to let us know your experiences with shopping in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.